Good morning, everybody. There we go. Welcome to our virtual worship, whoever you are, wherever you are, whether you're a longtime member of this church or you found your way to our Zoom link for the very first time this morning. We're glad you're here. Our church building, as you know, is closed right now for safety's sake, but our church is alive and flourishing, and you are an important part of that. I'm Fran Manley, and I'm pleased to serve as this morning's worship associate. I'm also delighted today to welcome to our virtual pulpit our guest preacher, the Reverend Dr. Clyde Grubbs. Clyde is a UU minister based in Massachusetts, whose Texas Cherokee Native American heritage informs his spiritual understanding and practice, as well as his anti-racist and anti-oppression commitments. He's also a certified spiritual director. You can find out more about him and his work on his website, revclydegrubbs.com. It's a privilege to have him with us this morning. Welcome, Clyde. First, as usual, couple of Zoom worship things. You can see and hear Reverend Grubbs and me, but we can't see you or hear you, and you can't see or hear each other. But you can comment and chat all through the service. I encourage you to type a greeting into the chat so your friends will know you're here, unless, of course, you'd really rather stay anonymous. Note, when you use the chat, make sure you're addressing not only the panelists, but also all the attendees. After the service, you're invited to sign out of this call and sign into a new one for our virtual fellowship hour, where you can actually talk with each other. The Zoom link for that is in your weekly e-blast and will be on the last screen for this service. Now, if it takes a village to raise a child, it also takes a village to produce a virtual service like this one. Special thanks go to Josh Disick, John Petroselli, and Justice DeClean, our fabulous tech wizards, Karen Streech, photographer extraordinaire, Bobby Withrow, who posts the order of service and more in your chat box, and our incredible music staff. Few announcements today, lots of good stuff coming up. On Wednesday, next Wednesday, there will be a Veterans Day service at 11 a.m. November 11th, outside by the garden entrance. There'll be reflective readings, prayers, music, loving kinship. Don't forget your mask. Save the date for a probable Transgender Day of Remembrance service on November 20th. This will be at 7 p.m. in the sanctuary, depending on the COVID rates in the neighborhood. We will keep you posted if the service is canceled. We can't do usual service breaking a bread communion. So this year we're going to do a cranberry sauce communion. Come to the church garden entrance Sunday, November 22nd, 2 to 4 p.m., and you'll receive a jar of lovingly homemade cranberry sauce to grace your Thanksgiving table. At that time, you'll also have an opportunity to donate food and toiletries to the Evergreen Health Services Food Pantry. You'll get more details later. Keep watching your e-blast. And finally, for those of you who are missing being able to go walk through our beautiful West Ferry door into the sanctuary, you can have a little piece of it right at your own house, just like I have here. See the e-blast for information about the print and about the door, and find out how to order your very own copy. Proceeds from the sale of the print will benefit our rolling auction fundraiser. And that's just the beginning. We have lots of activities for adults and children going on throughout the week on Zoom platforms. So check your newsletter and your e-blast to see what's happening and how you can be a part of it. And if you're not receiving the newsletter or the e-blast, please contact the church office and we'll be glad to have had you to our mailing list. And now, let us take a deep breath and call ourselves to be fully present at this time and this place with these words from the poet Nancy Wood. The earth is all that lasts. The earth is what I speak to when I do not understand my life, nor why I am not heard. The earth answers me with the same song that it sang for my fathers when their tears covered up the sun. The earth sings a song of gladness. The earth sings a song of praise. The earth rises up and laughs at me each time that I forget how spring begins with winter and death begins with birth. Come, let us worship. And let us mark our time and space of worship by lighting a chalice. I will light mine. If you have a candle or a chalice, please light that too as we say together our words for the chalice lighting. Let us say together, we gather in loving community, inspiring one another to transform ourselves, to create a more just and compassionate world. And now, let's sing. The hymn is Ancient Mother, number 1069.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears. Ancient Mother, I hear you calling. Ancient Mother, I hear your song. Ancient Mother, I feel your laughter. Ancient Mother, I taste your tears.
The story I'm going to tell you is called The Woman Who Fell from the Sky. It was told by people who lived in upstate New York, in Quebec, Pennsylvania, and all across the Great Lakes. You see, one of the things that perhaps isn't appreciated is for the people who were here for thousands of years before the Mayflower, thousands of years before the Mayflower, the Great Lakes were a transportation opportunity because they could canoe from place to place all over the lakes. And therefore, the people, and there was many different language groups, spoke that they spoke to. They couldn't understand each other just to talk, but they could share stories. Stories were told by the various people, and of course there would be different versions between Minnesota and upstate New York. So in the story, in the beginning, the whole world, the entire world, is water. There's no land at all. There's fish who live in the sea. There's birds who fly in the air. There are land animals who live in the sky, but there is no land at all. And the tree of life is in the sky, And one day, the tree of life falls from the sky and falls toward the earth. and leaves a big hole in the sky. And the woman who lives in the sky falls through that hole and begins to fall, fall, fall. And she's wearing her dance scarf, a big, and it flops in the air. And so she's moving through the sky, and the birds can see her falling, and they're very worried. Birds are very worried. So they come flying just right under her, and their wind, the updraft of the birds flying, lots and lots of birds gathering, and the updraft keeps the woman from falling fast, and she's falling slow, and her dance becomes even more exquisite and powerful. But the birds are a little worried because even though she's not falling fast, she's still falling, and there's nothing down there but water. So they send signals to all the creatures of the sea that they got a problem. Problem, woman who lives in the sky is falling into the sea. And at that time, all the fish come to the surface and start flapping around, and a great giant turtle surfaces, and the birds guide the woman who fell from the sky gently over the turtle. The woman who fell from the sky had, of course, been holding on to some seeds from the tree of life. And so as she begins to dance on the turtle, dancing on the turtle around and around and around, and the creatures who live in the sea begin, the fish and all of the different eels, etc., begin to bring little bits of soil from the bottom of the sea up to the turtle, and they pile it on, and she puts the seeds in, and pretty soon it grows and it grows and it grows until it's what you call North America. So the world has been created, the life seeds have come down with the woman who fell from the sky, and all of the plants have grown, and we call this place Turtle Island. Turtle Island to this day, because the turtle is the bedrock that keeps the woman who fell from the sky dancing our creation into existence. So in the conversation, one of the things Joan might ask you in the fellowship hour is, what's the worldview of the people who would tell this story compared to perhaps the worldview of the people who told the story of Adam and Eve or other creation stories? There's so many creation stories, and each creation story comes from a point of view of the people who told it. So go think about Turtle Island. Welcome to Turtle Island.
Every week, our congregation takes a good portion of our Sunday morning offering and gives it away to a social justice cause outside our church walls. Our justice ministry team is excited to dedicate our November Share the Plate to Evergreen Health Services. Evergreen Health fosters healthy communities by providing medical, supportive, and behavioral services to individuals and families in Western New York, especially those who are living with chronic illness or who are underserved by the healthcare system. You can find more information about all the specific programs of Evergreen Health in your e-blast or this month's newsletter. To make your offering, you can use PayPal by going to our website, www.buffalouu.org, and clicking on the blue donate button. Or you can send a check by mail to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Buffalo, 695 Elmwood Avenue, Buffalo, New York, 14222. If yours is a gift to our Share the Plate ministry, please write share on the memo line, and it will be shared between Evergreen Health and our church operating budget. If yours is a welcome gift to our congregation, please write Pledge 2020 on the memo line. Either way, please write UUCB on the important line, and we will do the bookkeeping. Let's give from our hearts so we can transform the world.
Not a leaf is heard to murmur, not a bird is there to sing, and bewildering eyes scan the fearful skies, asking why this strange and silent spring. Children hide and roses tremble, doors are dark and shades are down, and the rains of hate rust the garden gate as the ghost of spring stalks the town. Is this the land where flags were flown to bring this hopeful world a dream of spring unknown? Is this the dream? Is this the spring? The silent spring that silent men have reaped and sown. Silent men, take heart, take wing, and sing away this silent spring.
Well, it was one of the things that I've been doing over the last few years is working with the Unitarian Universalist Association and with its congregations around Indigenous peoples' understanding Indigenous peoples. When the commitment of the UUA to decenter whiteness or deconstruct white supremacy, the question became, how do we retell the story of the relationship of this European invasion of North America, of Turtle Island, with the original people that were here, and to tell those stories in a way that helps Unitarian Universalists grow. So one of the projects, of course, of the Indigenous peoples of the United States, and this goes back for quite a few years, 50 years, is to rename Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day. Now, Columbus Day has passed, and Indigenous Peoples Day is also, if you celebrate it at your church, is also there. But one of the products was a great flourishing of young people in the 1990s, who started thinking about what Indigenous Peoples Day means to them. And one is a poem that I'm about to read as our reading. It's called Jimmy Durham, and the poem was called Columbus Day. And he wrote it when he was 18. and he just finished school in Oklahoma, and he wants to protest what he learned in school. So here's the point. In school, I was taught the names Columbus, Cortez, and Pizarro, and a dozen other filthy murderers, a bloodline going all the way back to General Miles and Daniel Boone. No one mentioned the names of even a few of the victims. But don't you remember Chasky, whose spine was crushed so quickly by Mr. Pizarro's boot? What words did he cry into the dusk? And what was the familiar name of that young girl who danced so gracefully that everyone in the village sang with her before Cortez's sword hacked off her arms as she protested the burning of her sweetheart? That young man's name was Many Deeds, and he had been the leader of the band of fighters called the Red Stick Hummingbirds, who slowed the march of Cortez's army with only stones, which now lay still in the mountains. And remember Greenlock Woman was the name of that old lady who walked right up and spat in Columbus's face. We must remember that, and remember laughing out of the Tiano, who tried to stop Columbus and was taken away as a slave. We never saw him again. In school, I learned of heroic discoveries made by liars and crooks, and the courage of millions of sweet and true people was not commemorated. Let us then declare a holiday for ourselves and make a parade that begins with Columbus's victims and continues even to our own grandchildren who will be named in their honor. Because isn't it true that even the summer grass here in this land whispers their names, and every creek has accepted the responsibility of singing those names, and nothing can stop the wind from howling those names around the corners of that school? Why else would the birds sing so much sweeter here than in other lands?
Let us join our hearts and minds now in a time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. The poet Wendell Berry wrote, "When despair goes in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free." In this time of meditation, may we rest in the grace of the world and be free. In weakness, may we sense the strength of the eternal hills and rest in the grace of the world. In failure, may we be upheld like the buoyancy of water and rest in the grace of the world. In limitation, may we remember that the choices may be as great as the expanse of the sky and rest in the grace of the world. In insecurity, may we feel the solid earth beneath our feet and rest in the grace of the world. In despair, may we hear the joy in birds singing and rest in the grace of the world. In fear, May we feel the warmth of the sun and rest in the grace of the world. Today, we're pleased to share the news that Tom Petroselli is home from a stay in the hospital. He's very well and excited about returning to youth group. We're also delighted to report that Kathleen Ludwig, still nursing a broken bone, has come out strong on the other side of a COVID infection. And we are celebrating with Hi Carol and his love Nicole, who are now engaged to be married. And now let us fill the chat with the names of all our loved ones suffering in sorrow and celebrating in joy. Each name a breath, each breath a prayer.
This dawn the wind is thirst, the scorched earth cries out in
There is a haunting scene in Zora Neale Hurston's important novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. One afternoon, the protagonist, Janie, sees Seminole Indians passing through the swamp, heading east. They warn that a hurricane is coming, but no one believes them. That night, the great Okeechobee hurricane struck, killing 3,000 of what remains one of the most devastating recorded natural disasters. The Seminole had read the tall grass in the swamps near Lake Okeechobee, where the lake opens up to that river of grass, which we call the Everglades. They observed the sea pods swell and pop open, and they began to leave the scene, moving to higher ground. The Seminoles said the tall grass had spoke. The tall grass had spoke to them. From generations of experience living in that part of Florida and living in Florida, they had learned how their ecology behaved and how their ecology responded to different weather patterns. That experience allowed them to know that a hurricane was coming, and their experience with hurricanes convinced them to evacuate to higher ground. This was 1928, before Doppler radar and mathematical models, which is how our scientific culture has learned to predict storms. They had no instruments, no computers, but they did have the grass. They did have indigenous wisdom. They had what we might call Seminole science. In the prairies west of the Missouri River, the Caddo and Wichita people built very large houses made out of grass with cedar frames, low to the ground. Seen from a distance, they might be taken from a mound. Some of these structures were big enough to host a whole village for dance ceremonies, for games, for community meetings, through which the community celebrated the sacred and enjoyed themselves as a people. The grass houses were both breathable and waterproofed. The Caddo Wichita peoples had lived in the prairies for generations and generations. They had experienced all kinds of weather in that open environment. They knew about blizzards. They knew about snows that just keep coming. They knew about the relentless sun of the summer. And they knew that prairies could see tornadoes. These big houses stood up to storms. They were not crushed by the snow. They learned from their environment and built a sustainable relationship to it. They did not go to an architectural school, but they did have indigenous wisdom from building on building and building to build buildings that were part of the prairie, with the prairie, not against the prairie. They practiced Watteau and Wichita science. Let us move further west. Few people know that Phoenix, Arizona, and its surrounding suburbs sits on one of the most extensive and sophisticated irrigation systems in the world. Now, I'm not talking about the present water robbing system that has been set up in the desert in the last century. No, I'm talking about the system that was built by the Hoboken people 2 centuries before that slave trader Columbus got lost in the Bahamas, where he and his crew were discovered by the Taínos. The Hoboken irrigation system was a major engineering feat. The ancient canal system dates from the 5th and 6th centuries, according to our hegemonic Christian calendar. And the building continued for hundreds and hundreds of years. Thousands of miles of waterways were constructed, watering tens of thousands of acres of crops, and the water was returned to the rivers through the project. The Hoboken people had learned from their surroundings and built a viable technology that arose out of nature, but they continued building and building and building to the point they began to work against the river. By the 12th century of the Common Era, they had built an urban community that had become unsustainable. The Hoboken civilization collapsed when it lost touch with its relationship to its environment, when it became arrogant with its accomplishments, when it began to ignore its own indigenous wisdom. The Hoboken people no longer exist as a people. They went the way of other urbanized cultures and peoples who ceased to listen to Mother Earth. They did not live within the limits imposed by the desert or the river. They forgot the practices that had given their culture life in the first place. For most of the time human beings have lived on the planet, people have paid attention to the earth. And when they didn't, problems occurred. People had paid attention to the earth because they lived in a place, and the place provided for their needs by knowledge of that particular environment, and they learned by experience how to create a sustainable economy. And by living in harmony with Mother Earth, she revealed her secrets to them in that place over time. Let me repeat that in other words that are perhaps other words help sometimes to clarify. Indigenous wisdom is particular to a location. It is wisdom of people who have learned by experience to create a sustainable way of life, and the knowledge that comes from practice over time. The ancient medical understanding of my ancestors, the Cherokee people, was based on observing. This herb does provide relief for poison ivy. That one doesn't. But don't chew it. Don't drink it in a tea. Make a balm out of it. Make a balm out of it and rub it right on the rash. Medicine women kept this knowledge and trained their daughters. And the body of knowledge grew over time. Most pharmacology today owes many of its formulas, and sometimes they say most of their formulas and potents, to ancient herbalists, whose treatments were often as effective as those we know today, and not as expensive. And now we are coming to understand that the health of indigenous Americans before the European invasion was excellent at least compared to Europe and South Asia, where there were big civilizations that had lots of diseases. They did not suffer from diabetes, cancer, heart attacks as much as we do, much less. Their diets were mostly vegetables, beans, greens, squashes, whole grains. They got plenty of exercise and lived long lives. They didn't eat just one food. They had dozens of varieties of what we call maize corn, and other grains, dozens of varieties of legumes and fruits and greens. Today, our commercial agriculture has greatly reduced the choices. So unless you adventure into a Whole Foods and pay a premium or live near a very good organic farmer's market, the food too many people eat is quite circumscribed. The variety is limited. It does not supply human needs. American agriculture products are full of toxins. Our meats are full of antibiotics and growth hormones. But this isn't just about us this isn't just a health food kick. The way our food is grown and brought to us is destroying the soil and water reserves. Our food system has become unsustainable. Most Unitarian Universalists agree that there are a whole group of crises, and there may be even working groups in your congregation about some of these crises, but they've been taught that these crises are somehow outside of us. There are problems in the atmosphere, there are problems in the water table, there are problems in the soil, there are problems in the food supply. but there are abstractions outside of us. I'm inviting you to consider that the crisis is us. That is us, that our human relationship to our life-sustaining environment in which we live and move and have our being is profoundly alien. It's alien to who we were evolved to be. It's cultural rather than human. Our culture's relationship to nature is deeply contrary to nature, and at the same time, we are part of nature. That's inescapable. We've been taught all the crises of our relationship by various names. We call them these names: global warming, climate change, water resource depletion, species extinction, expansion of the deserts, acidic buildup of our oceans, ozone layer destructions, acid rain, deforestation, soil erosion, water and atmosphere pollution. And we have the crisis of world hunger, commercialization of agriculture, the crisis of diet and health. Our media and politicians treat all these critical problems in isolation. We're taught that they all have discrete problems, and their solutions are somehow discrete, just beyond. Sometime the scientists will figure it out. But take this pill for your heart. Spend lots of money on this technology to solve the climate problem. I'm inviting you to consider that our crisis of ecology is a profound spiritual malaise. We're not dealing with a series of isolated problems. This crisis arises out of our profound brokenness, a profound alienation of who we evolved to be as human beings. We've forgotten that we belong to the earth. The earth does not belong to us. We take these words of Noah Seath as an exotic saying something from Native American Heritage Month. But we do not live by these words. We do not live as if we belong to the earth. We do not belong to belong to the earth is to require a profound reorientation of our lives, our economy, our social practice, our politics are all premised on the idea that the earth is a thing, our thing, to manipulate and violate as we will. And if we believe that our earth is a thing and it belongs to us, we might believe that the problem with our ecology is a technological one. We can solve the problem with techniques, hybrid cars, windmills, fluorescent light bulbs. All these things are good things, but they don't address the root problem. If we come to live in this simple but profound reorientation, we can claim our human relationship to the earth. Our relationship to the earth gives us life. We can learn something of being in relationship, being of the earth, by listening, by understanding the indigenous people of this nation and the world, because indigenous wisdom, American Indian wisdom, is cooperative, based on generations of attentive interaction between humans and the diversity of life found in the unique ecosystems and environments. The indigenous understanding that we belong to the earth leads to a deep appreciation that we stand on the shoulders of all who have gone before, that our ancestors live in us. Their wisdom informs us, and that we profit from the choices they made and the work they did and the knowledge they accumulated. And as we suffer from their mistakes and missteps, we work to correct those mistakes. And if we understand that a relationship to the earth is a relationship to ancestors, therefore we know that every decision we make, we must consider the generations that come after us. We must ponder the earth that they will belong to. When we come to know the depths of our mind, and our spirit and our body, and that we belong to the earth, we will come to know, to live in awareness of our surroundings, of the place that we inhabit and its relationship to other places in this global economy. We will come to live relationship with what has been and what is to become in every moment of our now. This I believe, our humanity will heal our earth, and our earth will heal with our humanity. Let us sing "The Earth is Our Mother," which will appear right there on your screen. Let us sing. Earth is our mother.
The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. The earth is our mother, we must take care of her. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Her sacred ground we walk upon, with every step we take. Her sacred ground we walk upon, with every step we take. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young.
The earth is our mother, she will take care of us. The earth is our mother, she will take care of us.
Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young.
The sky is our father, we will take care of him. The sky is our father, we will take care of him.
Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young.
The sea is our sister, we will take care of her. The sea is our sister, we will take care of her.
Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. The forest is our brother, we will take care of him. The forest is our brother, we will take care of him. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young. Hey, young, oh, young, hey, young, young.
As we bring our service to a close, let us extinguish the flames of our chalice and say together the words that appear on your screen. As we extinguish the flame of this chalice, may we carry its light with us into the world in the power of peace, faith, justice, and love.
Remember as you leave this virtual community, this space provided by the wonders of technology, that we are all made. We're all made as the same stuff as the stars, that we're all connected that we're all connected and intimately related to the eternity of all that is and all that ever will be. And therefore, may you be blessed with the spirit of life, which is love, the gladness of this community, which is based on hope, and the practice of this congregation, which is lived spirituality. Go in peace. Walk in joy.